there is a need for this conversation because, corporate leaders have created wealth and created millions of jobs in India. The young have their own understanding of how they want to lead their lives, and that is leading to a lot of debate as well. You may be aware about work-life balance, and there are prescriptions on 70-hour work weeks, 90-hour work weeks. How do you address something like that? What is your idea of this balance, and how much is too much?
I said, ऐसे audience में, this सवाल ये तो आना ही है आज. कोई ना कोई मुझे पूछेगा इस सवाल. So I'll tell you, I have I have huge respect for Mr. Narayan Murthy and others, so let me not get this wrong.
Of course.
But I have to say something. I think this debate is in the wrong direction. Because this debate is about the quantity of work. My point is, we have to focus on the quality of work, not on the quantity of work. So it's not about 40 hours, it's not about 70 hours, it's not about 90 hours. What output are you doing even if it's 10 hours? You can change the world in 10 hours. So coming back to your question, Palki, I have always believed that you have to have leaders and people in your company who make wise decisions, wise choices. So the question is, which kind of mind makes the right choices and right decisions? And I think a mind that is exposed to holistic thinking, that is open to inputs from around the world, that's why I'm such a votary of liberal arts. I think even if you're an engineer, even if you're an MBA, you must study art, you must study culture. The MC was very kind that we support art and culture. Why? Why am I making shareholders pay for that? Because I think you make better decisions when you have a whole brain. When you are informed about arts, culture, that's when you'll make a good decision. If you're not spending time at home, if you're not spending time with friends, if you're not reading, if you don't have time to reflect, how will you bring the right inputs into making a decision? Let's take our business. You make a car. We have to decide what a customer wants in a car. If we are only in the office all the time, we are not with our families, we are not with other families, how are we going to understand what people want to buy? What kind of car do they want to sit in? So that is why I'm a big votary. I'm not going to say you need to work so many hours or that. Often you have to be in a tunnel just to complete a project or or there's a crisis, but you should not be in a tunnel every time. And Gandhiji said, open your windows, let the air in. So I definitely think there's no such thing as a work-life balance. There is something where it's not about balancing two things. You make good decisions if you have a holistic life, and you cannot be in a tunnel all the time.
Absolutely, and I think there's something to be said for both the arguments. I mean, you don't become a Narayan Murthy with a 9-to-5 work schedule, right? Sometimes you have to push. We grew up learning things like no pain, no gain, and yet I think everybody has their own threshold, and they decide what they... You're very successful. If I could ask you, how many hours a week do you work?
This is what I want to avoid, Palki. I don't want it to be about the time. I don't want it to be about quantity. Ask me what's the quality of my work. Don't ask me how many hours I work.
And since you're giving us tips, you look worried. It's not a trick question. How much time in a day do you spend on social media? Because you've aced your social media game, and yet you have managed time so well because you've built institutions, and I think we can all learn. I mean, this is a challenge that...
I'm often asked this question, then I'm asked about, do you have an office that manages it? If anyone's read my tweets, if you think my office can write like that, then I've got a fabulous team who lives inside my head, I don't know why people even ask that. So then you say, how much time do you have? And every time I'll get in my timeline, sab aap faltu ko nahi kaam karo, aap Twitter pe kyun hai? This kind of thing keeps coming up. I want to tell people and I've been asked this, I'm on X, on social media, not because I'm lonely. My wife is wonderful. I love staring at her. I spend more time. So I'm not here to make friends. I'm here because people don't understand. It is an amazing business tool. How in one platform, I get feedback from 11 million people. If I asked any research firm to tell me, can you get me a sample of 11 million, do you know what they charge me? So frankly, I once asked Microsoft or something, create a cockpit for me that tells me, how I can, what's happening in my factory, what's happening here, what's happening there. And they said $1 million. So I said, can't do it. And then Twitter came around, and it was free. So everybody out there has a mobile camera. I'll give you just 2 examples, which, since these are young people. One of them was a person who tweeted to me saying, I want to thank you. My girlfriend and I were at a concert in Nasik, and she got sick and was throwing up right outside the wall of your factory. Pawan, you may know this story. I may have told you this. And she said that at that time, your chowkidar from the factory, the security officer, came out and he helped us and got her water. And I just wanted to thank you. That's a wonderful gesture instead of trying to chase us away. So I called up the factory manager and I said, find out who this chowkidar is. I want you to felicitate him in front of people. Give him some flowers from me and say, that's the culture I want Mahindra to have. Now you tell me, you talk about HR, what do you think those people were thinking? आनंद महेंद्र जी को कैसे पता चल गया? वो तो बम्बई में नारीमन पॉइंट में बैठे हैं. उसको कैसे पता चल गया ये हो गया? And what was the message I sent about what culture we wanted? How do you find another tool to do that? So it's invaluable to have that kind of platform. That's why I'm on it again. I'm not on it because I need friends.
No, you should be on it. You dispense a lot of advice, and I can clearly see the connect, everything that you've said and what you do, obviously.
Over the years, obviously, India has confounded the naysayers and shaped itself into the world's largest democracy. And the Mahindra group of companies initially flourished as well, since in a bid for self-sufficiency, much of Indian industry was protected from external competition. However, in the early 90s, India and Indian industry were both in crisis. Faced with the prospect of running out of foreign exchange reserves, India took the radical step of liberalizing its closed economy, and after decades of being protected, suddenly the world's most powerful companies were at our doorstep, anxious to get a temptingly large piece of the Indian pie. For old economy companies like ours, which had prospered under a protectionist regime and had forgotten really how to compete, the opening up of the Indian economy was like the Grim Reaper knocking at the door. And seriously, there were people around, large consultancy firms, who were busy writing our epitaph. And yet, 3 decades later, here we are, a multi-billion-dollar group, still chugging along and earning goodwill while we do so. So how did we do it? Well, obviously, there were many ingredients. But to my mind, the most important one was to harness the power of purpose. We found ourselves in a very strange back-to-the-future kind of situation, where once again we had to prove that we as an Indian company could do it, that we could not just survive, but thrive in the changed economic landscape. And drawing upon an Indian narrative and upon our corporate history, we first elucidated a core purpose that would galvanize people to come to work in the morning and give off their best. Now, that core purpose was simply to say, Indians are second to none, and we will make products that will prove that to the world. I know that sounds terribly parochial, but please understand, at that time it was a cry to shed the most invisible, pernicious, and lingering feelings of inferiority and a lack of self-belief, which was the bequest of colonialism. And that really had an electrifying effect on our people. It triggered the David versus Goliath sentiment. It tapped into our collective memories of our founding days, where we had succeeded against all odds because we had something to prove. And it fueled our self-belief. I know that sounds warm and fuzzy, but it contributed to concrete results. Between 2002 and 2013, our profits went up 33 times. Our stock price went up 72 times. Now, that took a lot of hard work. But that hard work came about because people were motivated by a sense of purpose.